Good afternoon, and welcome to the Mary H. Weiser Center monthly webinar, focusing on the social and emotional aspects of living with food allergy. I'm Kim Menzel, the communication specialist and former food allergy counselor at the Michigan Medicine Allergy Clinic. My position is funded by a generous grant from the Mary H. Weiser Food Allergy Center. The center was recently named a Discovery Center of Distinction by FAIR in recognition of their ongoing advances in biomedical research into the origin and treatment of food allergy. Visit uofmfoodallergy.org to learn more about their many research initiatives in pursuit of a cure for food allergy. Today, we're so pleased to be joined by Megan Lavin, food allergy blogger and author of numerous cookbooks, including An Allergy Mom's Life-Saving Instant Pot Cookbook, as well as being the founder of allergy-awesomeness.com. A graduate of Brigham Young University with a bachelor's in communications with an emphasis in broadcast journalism, Megan brings a lot of understanding of effective communication and public awareness to her role as food allergy advocate of her own two boys who have multiple food allergies and one with eosinophilic esophagitis, EOE. Today, Megan and I will be discussing navigating food allergy and sports, school, and living awesomely in all aspects of living with food allergy, including how to communicate with coaches, teammates, parents, and school staff. We'll also share her tips for eating away from home at restaurants and in social gatherings. Our goal is for you to walk away with tools to advocate for your children, build confidence in them and yourself, and live life awesomely. We're so glad to be live today with you, Megan, and need our audience to contribute to our conversation so we can speak to what's on your mind. Send us questions using the Q&A function. We'll take as many as we can throughout the hour. We'd really like to speak to the kinds of things that occur to you as you hear Megan. Megan, thanks so much for joining me. Can we begin by asking you to share your journey into living with food allergy?
Hey, Kim, so glad to join you guys. Really appreciate your channel and other that, put out resources for us, because as we all know, it's not just a diagnosis. It, has tentacles that reach into every aspect of your life, social, emotional. So I'm excited to be here. And just a little bit of background about me. I knew nothing, absolutely nothing about food allergies. I didn't grow up with anyone that had it. Literally my extent was like, so you just can't eat a Reese's, I just did not understand. So when my first son, baby, 11 months old, had yogurt for the first time, he went into full-blown anaphylaxis. Now, of course, at the time, I didn't know what anaphylaxis was, but I could tell something was seriously wrong. Didn't have an EpiPen, just raced to the ER. And that began kind of our food allergy journey. And from there, thank goodness we had a fabulous allergist at the Primary Children's Hospital in Salt Lake City. And he recognized not only does he have lots of anaphylactic food allergies, but I think he has this rare allergic condition, eosinophilic esophagitis, or EOE. Oh, and by the way, he has eczema and asthma. And then we had our second, and it was like, oh, he has asthma. He also has multiple food allergies. So it's just been this huge, steep baptism by fire learning curve. And so that's why I'm always grateful when people have shared their stories with me, because I've learned so much from older allergy moms that have passed on their wisdom. So that's why I've always tried to be an open book, because I feel like if I can help just one person not feel that lonely, isolating feeling that I felt, none of my friends' kids have it, none of my family has it, then hopefully, that brings a smile to my face.
So you came into this journey kind of needing to find tools to live.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I know you've shared your sons play multiple sports, including soccer and baseball. We've talked about how you've learned to use communication really effectively with coaches, parents, and teammates. I know people want to know your tips. How do you do that? What are the ways you effectively communicate verbally and non-verbally? And you also mentioned you have a template you've perfected.
Yeah, well, it at least works for us. So my philosophy is you can still have a fabulous life, or the title of my blog is Allergy Awesomeness, an awesome life with food allergies. My boys are athletic. I don't know where they get it from because I can barely catch a ball. But so I really don't have experience with food allergies or playing sports. I mean, this is all a learning curve for me. But I just wanted them to live their fullest life. And if they enjoy sports, I'm going to find a way for them to do it, you know. And unfortunately, in today's society, food is everything. Food is, you know, a snack or a treat after every game. It's just ubiquitous, and it's any type of activity. And so I've had to learn to juggle both, like you mentioned. And thankfully, I feel like we live in a day and age where we have texting, we have apps, we have phone calls. There's so many ways. So I say utilize those, especially because, you know, I used to be a lot shyer. I used to have a hard time advocating for myself. And so, you know, texting can be great. Like, go play to your strengths. In fact, I actually prefer texting just because I want to know it's written down somewhere. Coaches oftentimes are volunteers. It's the side hustle that they do. And they're probably like, I just met your kid. Which one was your son? And oh, what food allergy was it? We can't expect people to have it be top of mind. So I feel like my responsibility is making sure it's written down for him. So if it's in a text, I know it will be in their phone, something they can refer back to. My template is, you know, state my child's name. Hi, my son so-and-so is on your team. He has these severe food allergies where if he ate them, he would need an EpiPen and to have to go to the ER. I make sure they understand that, because a lot of times people erroneously use food allergy to mean like intolerance or sensitivity. So I make sure that's very clear from the get-go. Then I try and keep it succinct. Then I say that he has food allergies to, you know, peanuts, tree nuts, wheat, dairy, eggs. Then I say, if there are going to be treats, here is a list of safe snacks I would really love for you to utilize, so that way he can feel included and he can be safe. Real short, you say their name, their allergies, how serious they are, and then I make sure to include safe treats, because I know how it feels to not understand allergies. They don't know how to read labels, and we can't put that on them. And I don't want them, you'd feel so bad if they thought they bought a safe treat and they went to the trouble, but it still wasn't. So that's a lose-lose. So I try and set them up for success. And then I ask them, once they've gotten that text, I say, how would you like this communicated to the other parents? Do you want me to be the one to tell them, or would you like it to come from you? And some coaches are like, I want to support your child. I want it coming from me. And some coaches, that's not their forte. And so they say, yeah, could you reach out to everyone? And so I'll do that. Sometimes some places use an app, like the Y, at least where I live, uses an app. So I use the app to get a hold of parents. I'll do a texting chain. So I try and make sure that I have covered all the bases. I've been upfront. I've been, you know, very point blank, let them know I don't want to waste their time. I want to make sure the point gets across. So that template, and then asking them, you know, sometimes it's an email chain, like however they want me to communicate. And then I make sure, even though obviously they should have my number, if we're texting or we're emailing, I put my full name and my, you know, either email or phone. Please text me with any questions, because that way I can make sure that if there's follow-up questions or they forget, they know who, and like, oh, what was that number? Who was that lady? You know, just give them all the facts so they can be as successful as possible.
And what kind of success have you seen so can we look at like a best case scenario that you've had? And then what about a not so great? And then what did you do in that situation?
Yeah, so I think you have to realize it's life, and it's going to be messy, and there's going to be awesome times, and there's going to be some fails. And I think it's easy to take it personal, and maybe sometimes it is. There was one time when I had let all the people know, and the mom was like, well, it's my son's birthday and I really want to bring donuts. And she brought these huge, delicious looking donuts. And I was really sad that she chose to do that, but that's her choice, right? So that was a letdown, and I had to, okay, why don't we go home and we get a treat? And you move on, you know, you're sad, you let yourself feel those feelings. I'm sorry, one of my toddlers is crying in the background, if you can hear that. And then there's some times where people just forget. And then there are times where they're like, oh, did I bring the right snack? I totally remembered your list and I shopped off of it. And you're like, oh, thank you so much. You know, because a lot of times every season you change, and it's new parents and it's new coaches. And so to be like, you don't even know me. And so I think we it's nerve-wracking to trust people, but I think you have to realize a lot of times that there's a lot of good people in the world and they want to help when they remember. And so if I can remind them and I can give them the information, most of the time it's been pretty positive. It hasn't always, like I said, there's been times where my son, after the game, they all run up to the parent that has the treat and then he's like walking away dejected. But those few minutes of disappointment would never inhibit us from playing sports. There's so many wonderful other moments that you pick up yourself and you move on, you know?
So how about in your communication with your kids? So as a food allergy counselor, I frequently hear kids that, they talk a lot about, I'm afraid of being embarrassed, feeling different, getting teased. If my mom or dad talks about my food allergies, or if I talk about it, I don't want anyone to know. Let's just not talk about it because I'm afraid it'll change how people see me, or I'll just feel embarrassed. How do you talk to your kids about those things so that they can feel like, no, that's not going to be the best way. We just have to be like straightforward and open, and we can have good outcomes.
Yeah, well, that's a real situation. And the older my sons get, the more I notice that happening, and I think it's a fine line of realizing, yeah, I used to feel that way too, right? When you were a teen or tween, you do not want to stick out. You want to blend in with the crowd. You don't want to feel different. And so I think honoring those feelings of like, you're finding your self-confidence, you're finding yourself. And so this can, seem like sometimes to adults like a pebble and it feels like a boulder to them, right? They're just like, oh, this is going to be a game changer. People know about my food allergies. So I try and, have lots of conversations in private with my child where, we try and say things like, if they're your real friends, they won't care. What you eat doesn't make who you are. They're not, most of the time, most kids don't notice. Most kids are so self-absorbed. They're too busy eating their own treat to look over and think, oh, why is he eating something different, But all of that still isn't going to erase it. And I think we have to realize the kids are going to have their own journey with this. And they're probably going to have a few moments of embarrassment, and they will learn to get thick skin. And that can be a positive outcome of food allergies, as well as I really try to model just being matter of fact. And like I said, I've had to overcome this because like me being shy or like feeling awkward approaching the coach or talking to people, models like, you should be ashamed of this, or this is something that's really uncomfortable. And so I just try and be like, oh, Carter has, food allergies and, we can't eat that, sorry. And just make it very normal and part of a typical conversation. And I think not putting that heaviness on those helps them see like, oh, it's just a matter of fact. That's just, and I try and always use the example of like, your brother's eyes don't work correctly and he has to use glasses. Your body doesn't, like food, so it needs this, or it needs to not have this. Like everybody has something. And I think reminding him of that, like your friend, if it wasn't food allergies, or my kid is going to have struggles in life. That's just life. It would be, that he doesn't feel like he fits in, or he doesn't have friends, or like, so I'm almost like, you know what, we'll take food allergies. There's way more serious things in life. And he will learn to get a thick skin and realize this isn't a make or break,
So it sounds like you've really normalized and treated it matter-of-factly, like it's serious, it matters, but it's manageable. It's manageable. So
yes.
how about, I know parents are always interested in, when you're eating away from home, when you're doing things that are sort of out of your control, what about when it doesn't go well? So can you talk about a time that, even though everyone did everything right, there was still a food allergy reaction? And I know you've been through anaphylaxis many times with your kids. Can you share one of those situations? And I think you and I have talked about, it's truly, how can we see the opportunity in it afterwards? And what are the lessons gained? Not, oh, let's start avoiding, but truly instead, if you can talk about one of the times that you went through that very difficult situation, but then like, what meaning did your family make of it? And how were people better off afterwards?
Yeah, so thankfully we have not had any experiences with sports because it is usually a quick treat, or a Powerade or something afterwards. So it's always nice because it's not usually a full meal. There was one time where a team wanted, well, twice where a team wanted to go out for like a celebratory end of the season situation, but nothing happened there. But we have had anaphylaxis 4 times, unfortunately. I know as a new allergy parent, you just hope and pray it will never happen to you. And you can just perfectly read every label and there will never be a situation. But unfortunately, that hasn't been our case. We actually, our latest one was about a year ago, and we went out for my birthday. So talk about mom guilt. I was like, well, if I would have just cooked my own meal on my birthday. But we went to a safe place that we've been a million times. And it's called Costa Vida, and it's here more on the West Coast. And one of the reasons why we like it is it's one of those places where you can watch them make it and you move along. But it was a pandemic, and so they weren't allowing eating in, and you had to do it through the drive-through. And so we think what happened is because we weren't there to watch it, they put the wrong kind of tortilla, and unfortunately my son didn't notice till he had taken a few bites. And I think every parent, it's almost a cycle, I think, because we've had it so many times, is it's like it's sheer panic and nerves and scariness, and then you start to blame yourself, and then you're like, what could we have done different? And it's just, you have to kind of let those emotions ride, and then you start to calm down. You realize, oh, okay, I didn't mean for this to happen to my child. I was prepared. We always have our EpiPens. We got to the hospital in time. The hospital took care of him. We're okay. We're okay. And you just have to, like, I even got off social media for a few days because it just takes a while for our nerves to calm down, because it is a high stress situation. And we try and encourage our son to talk about it, and we allow him to say things like, that was really scary for me. I thought I might die. And I try and be vulnerable with him as well. Yeah, I was scared too, but yeah, that was scary, and validate his feelings. So I think a lot of talking, a lot of validation helps kind of quell those fears. And then we talk about, once we're ready to, you don't have to jump right into it. We talk about, okay, what can we do different? And for a while he said, I don't want to eat there anymore. And I understood that, and I didn't want to push him. But we actually called the head chef of the restaurant, and we spoke with him. And how did this happen? We usually go to you guys because you have such good procedures in place. And he felt like he isolated what went wrong. And so I think my son seeing us take action helped him feel comfortable. And then we told him, when you're ready, let's eat there again, but you tell us when you're ready. And I think because the ball was in his court, we've eaten there multiple times since. But he's a little bit more on guard, and he wants to be up there with me watching them make it, and it takes some time to work through it. But to me, it's worth taking the time to work through it, because I don't want him being stigmatized and having it just be this PTSD that he can't get over and he'll never eat out again, because life is beautiful eating out. It's fun to eat out. It's great when you're on the road, and like, you can't just live your life in a bubble. So you just work through it a little bit at a time, and you give them time to process. And you try and model, like, yeah, that was good, but we can move forward. We can do hard things. We can be positive, and we can make sure there's safeguards in place, and you just do your best. It's tough.
It sounds like you really tried to model back, kind of things he would be able to do for himself in the future. He could call the chef, he could speak to a manager, he could ask questions. And so you modeled, even though it didn't go the way we hope, that doesn't mean there's never a way to eat out safely. You have your medication with you, you recognize your symptoms, you treat immediately if you start to experience symptoms, and you trust that your medication is going to help. And even if you don't feel well and you're scared, but the protocols are in place and you're going to be okay. And so the fear doesn't win out, even though, yes, we have to be cautious, but we're not going to start avoiding. Because that really leads to a whole cycle of avoidance and then more anxiety and avoidance, and then life gets small.
Yeah, it does. And I think even just one comment my son made is that when we were driving to the hospital, he was like, I don't want to go to the hospital, because I think it makes it seem more serious. But I was like, buddy, we've done what we can, and they are trained, and they are going to take good care of you. And And we're so lucky that we have other people to help me take care of you, So I think there can be a lot of fears with it, and to kind of talk about, we're going to go there and they're going to take such good care of you. And they've got the machines and additional medications that, mom doesn't have. And so, yeah, I think just talking through it, modeling it is so key for sure.
So as we keep talking about ways to build resiliency, so after dealing with the stress of a reaction, can you talk more about how you've empowered yourself to effectively deal with pushback? I know you talked about learning to have difficult conversations, and you recommended a book, Crucial Conversations, that was helpful to you in managing the discomfort of advocating and needing to communicate so much with people. I know people would want to hear more about your experience with that.
I'm sorry, my children are.
No, it's fine.
Let me just.
No, oh, please go ahead. So we want to encourage everybody, send your questions into us. We want to speak to what's on your mind. And if the things Megan and I are talking about bring something to mind, please send us a note so we can speak to you.
Thank you, Kim, for taking the reins for a second. Real life, right? Real life. This is live. So as far as growing about communication, I think just being patient with yourself, realizing if this is not a natural ability that you have, that you're not always going to get it right. And there's going to be moments of uncomfortableness. I mean, I'm just like, oh, just wanted to die saying something, the nerves but yet I look back and I'm like, it's beautiful. This growth is beautiful. It's been hard fought for growth, and it's sometimes doing like a support call with a friend beforehand and being like, okay, what am I going to say? Okay, this principal for this 504 plan seems like she's pushing back. What are, like even practicing, de-stressing afterwards, telling a good friend who gets there, or my spouse, okay, this is how it went. What can I say next time? This didn't go well. And then, like I said, preparing myself. I've been a big proponent of growing and self-help. I love Brene Brown. I love the book Crucial Conversations, and learning to be vulnerable, learning to open myself up. But as scary as it is, I always feel a payoff afterwards. I'm like, I did it, because sometimes it's even hard for me to stand up for myself. But I think that mama bear comes out and it forces you to grow, because you're like, I want my child to be included, or I want my child to be safe. And I've needed that push. So it's been a really beautiful silver lining of food allergies, is learning like, get a thicker skin, take a deep breath, and just do it. You'll be glad you said something.
So it sounds like your confidence has really improved, and then you're able to help share those strategies with your kids.
Yes.
Have you noticed their confidence has improved over the years as they've been managing their allergies?
Yes and no. I feel like my son had a lot of confidence when he was younger, grade school. And I hope that's because of how I was modeling it. And like I said, as we're moving into these teen years, I noticed the hesitancy, but I think that's normal. And like I said, I think he's going to, but I hope he'll come back to it. And I hope, because it continues to be modeled, I'll see that he has the strength to. And I've even, helped them realize it doesn't come natural to me. So one time I had a really difficult conversation. It wasn't about food allergies. And I told him, man, I'm kind of nervous to go have this conversation. So it normalizes, because I think sometimes kids think, well, if it doesn't come normal, then I'm not going to do it. And I'm like, I'm nervous. And I came back and I told them how the conversation went. And I said, I'm really proud of myself. That was hard for me to do. And I feel good that I stuck up for myself. And they're like, oh, okay. Even mom, has to build herself up a little bit. So I think that as they see it modeled and as they have practice, because it's okay if it doesn't go well, they need to have that practice, and he'll get better with time. I have faith in him.
So we have a couple messages here from our audience. So your kids have different allergies. If so, how do you keep straight who can eat what, or is it necessary to put certain foods off limits even for those who aren't allergic?
Very good question. So thankfully, my younger son is just allergic to peanuts and tree nuts, and my older son also has peanut and tree nuts. So they have that overlapping, which I think makes it a lot easier. And I feel for parents where they're completely different sets. But then my older son has the addition of the wheat, the dairy, the egg. And And oh, it was such a wrestle, right? That I feel like it's not a one size fits all situation. As my sons have gotten older, we have allowed for food that the younger son, because he has less food allergies, to be in the home. But it took a lot of agonizing and a lot of thinking about, okay, what boundaries are we going to have in place around that? You know, my son that has more allergies only drinks out of this one cup. That is his cup, you know, so that way we don't get it messed up. You know, maybe the baby that's messier with food is always in the high chair. They don't touch that stuff. And now that he's older, he can read labels and he recognizes the difference in containers. You know, and then my kids know if we eat something that has food allergies, we immediately wash our hands, soap and water. And so as my kids have gotten older, I felt safer to start implementing things like that, because as much as I want to protect the older one, I don't want to hold the other one back. And things like wheat and dairy and eggs is a big diet booster. It helps him have a more well-rounded diet. And so I always try and cook to the lowest common denominator when it comes to dinner. I think because we're all sitting down together, it's nice that he doesn't feel left out. But when it's come to like snacks or maybe breakfast that they might eat at different times because of bus schedules, I start to let them differ a little bit. But I have talked to my older son that has more limits and said, like, what's really hard for you to see us eat? And he's like, it's hard for me to see you guys eat donuts because there's no commercially made donut I can have. And so that's the boundary. If my kids want a donut, that's something they have when it's just mom and me time and we're out running errands, you know? And then I try and buy things that are similar. So I might buy like Yoplait for my one son and So Delicious for my other. So that way he feels like, oh, how come they can have that? Well, you also have a safe yogurt. Well, how come they can have this bread? You also have safe bread. How come they can have, you know? And so I try and make it equal within, you both have a similar option. But obviously that's what works for us and comfort level. And my oldest son that has the most is very responsible. He's very careful. I think because he's had anaphylaxis multiple times, he knows it's not worth it. So a lot of factors go into play. And I wish whoever asked that question, lots of luck determining what works for your household.
So that just made me think one of the things we know is as boys get older, our highest risk for a anaphylactic reaction and a fatal reaction are boys up until about 25 or so. And we know some of the reasons are they might stop checking ingredients. They might not ask a lot of questions before they order at a restaurant. They might not carry their EpiPens as often. So we know that early training in recognizing symptoms, carrying the medication, and asking before you eat anything and telling your friends is so important. And it sounds like you're really helping them to gain the skills by practicing now. And so hopefully that carries over as they get to be older, young adults. They're going to have the skills when you're not there with them.
That's definitely the goal. I mean, I feel like my job as a parent is to prepare him for life. I only get 18 years with him. And thankfully I had an allergist I felt like that was pretty progressive. And when I was asking him when we were making that decision, you know, I've heard other allergy parents say, but your home should be a safe space, you know, but then I thought in just a few short years, he's going to be living in dorms and apartments and he can't expect all of his roommates to do that. Like you can't put that on other people. Hopefully they would be considerate, but you can't especially where he has so many of like really basic foods. So yeah, it's teaching him, you check the pantry, you turn it over, you make sure it's a safe brand. You don't just grab whatever out of the fridge. You have to be, and that's what we teach him is part of being a responsible adult is being responsible for yourself. It's taking care of yourself. And by doing so, you have those additional steps. And so I feel like it's really good practice. And we keep it a safe space by giving him safe options, letting him safely express his emotions about it, having open discussions about it. So I feel like we can still make it a safe space while giving his other siblings options and finding that line.
Absolutely. And he's learning to ask questions before he has something, check it out, clarify, and not assume. And he's practicing that at home too.
Yeah, so I'm not always going to be there. He can't have mom doing his grocery shopping in college, you know? So, and I've heard that statistic about boys and it gives me a lot of heartburn over the years thinking, how can I best prepare them? How can I best prepare them? And it starts now, it starts in the home.
Absolutely. So I know when we talked, you had a motto, make what you wish existed. And how does that play out in your own family? And maybe you can speak to the website you've developed.
Yeah. So I mean, this was a while ago. I mean, Pinterest was like still a baby website back when my son was first having food allergies. There weren't that many food blogs. And I just remember just bawling in the grocery store, like just looking at moms with carts full of goldfish and, certain crackers and just being like, I'm wandering the aisles hoping I can just keep him full. Like, how am I supposed to feed him? And just wishing like someone would grab me by the hand and say, here's what you can feed him, or here's, a safe recipe that's not going to taste awful, like that you'll actually enjoy. You're not just stomaching so you can all have the same dinner. We've all done that, I'm sure, where it's like, oh, this is so great. So I was just like, you know what? Enough. Like, I love food too much. I'm quite a foodie. And I always told myself I would rather slave in the kitchen than eat plain chicken and rice the rest of my life. And so I knew right from the get-go, I was like, I'm going to get a dedicated website for this. And I'm going to put down any recipe that works for us, because allergy ingredients are expensive. They can be hard to find. And it's a punch to the gut when you spent a lot of time and money and it just turns out awful. So I thought, if I'm willing to do the experimentation, and this is fun for me, this is a creative outlet, so I may as well write it down. And then if I can help people find meals that they're proud to serve their family, they don't mind having guests over, they can all enjoy it, it's safe, then great. That will be my new life mission. And I've kind of just jumped in head first. And I wish I had a cookbook. Okay, I make a cookbook. I wish I had a 30-day meal plan. Okay, make that 30-day meal plan. I can't sit around and wait. So it sometimes makes me laugh, because there will often be people who will comment on my blog, well, I wish it didn't have this ingredient. I'm like, do you know how many times I've thought that looking at Bobby Flay's recipes or Giada De Laurentiis's? Like, yeah, it stinks when a blog doesn't cater to you. So you cater to you. You find that tweak. You can't wait around for everybody to fix everything for you. So I'm a doer. I feel better when I'm doing. It makes me feel more proactive than just feeling like, oh, it's all happening to me, my food allergies. Like, I need that action to feel better about it.
So we have a question here. We're trying to teach our kids to take responsibility. Let me see here. For carrying their own epinephrine for sports practices, play dates, etc. Do your kids have a favorite type of holder? Or some way? I know we're always talking to kids at the clinic about how are you going to carry your medication when you're at practice, when you're at school, when you're at a friend's. And there's a lot of different ways, but coming up with something consistently you're willing to do and it's your routine. What's worked for your family?
Yeah, well, I've always felt a little jealous of girls because I feel like purses are such a great accessory. And
Yes.
so with boys, it's harder. But so we decided a long time ago, the backpack would be their carrier of choice. Because they didn't really want and everybody's different, but they didn't want the fanny pack or anything that felt different. Like you see a kid with a backpack and you don't blink an eye. You're not like, oh, why do they have that on? And so that just has become our carrier of choice. Plus, now that they're in school, with their 504 plan, they're allowed to self-carry. So their medications are always in their backpack because the nurse runs a bunch of schools and she's not always there. So we didn't feel comfortable with it being in the nurse's office. So then it never leaves. We're not always having to pack it somewhere or change oh, it's in his special carrier, but now he's going to school, so we got to put it here. It doesn't move. It's collecting dust in his backpack, hopefully, because we're not having to use it. So, and we've got hooks right on the front door. And so it's like, oh, you're going with grandma and grandpa, grab your backpack. Oh, you're going, here, grab your backpack. And so I think consistency is a key. And once we determine this is where it is, it lives here, unless it's expiring, then we always have that, oh, where is it? Oh, where did we last put it? So it's been a really big peace of mind for us. And with the boys, they don't mind it and it works well. And they can just take it off and set it down when they get to someone's house, and it's easy to spot because the backpack is fairly big. It's not like, where's that small carrier? So it's worked well for us, for sure.
That makes me think. So some of our parents have had training parties for other kids and for parents. How do you handle that? Now your kids are going on play dates, they're going to friends' houses. Do you use the same methods of communication to say, hey, do you need information on how to recognize symptoms or use an EpiPen?
Absolutely. Yeah. I basically use that same template, I'll get the parent's phone number and say, hey, just to let you know, my son's playing over at your house. His emergency medications are in his backpack. If something were to happen, he's allergic to this, this, and this, and parents have been great. They've been supportive. And then I always also, now that my sons are older and going places, we have a gizmo watch, and it's a watch that he can make phone calls on, because I don't feel like he's mature enough for a phone. And he's so responsible. He'll call me, hey, Mom, they want to give me an otter pop. Is that okay? Yes, you can go ahead and have that otter pop. So he's learned our communication, and his responsibilities have grown as he shows me he's responsible and he checks in, that I can trust him more and I can lengthen the leash, So it's that like learning and that growing that's really uncomfortable. Like, because it was easier when it was play dates, right? And like the moms were together and the kids were all together. And it feels a little bit scary, but again, like he's learning how to ask questions. He feels comfortable because he knows his emergency medications there, and the parent knows where to find it if there was an issue. Do you have any questions about food allergies? And thankfully, most parents, understand, okay, your child's at my house and I can be respectful of that. So it's worked well.
Have they been open to you training them to use the EpiPen?
Yeah, my close friends and family have. I haven't felt like a lot of the just more casual play dates my friends have, but I would hope that they would feel comfortable, because I make it such an open conversation.
Yeah.
And they most know, like, oh, your mom has a food allergy blog, and they know we're all about it, that they would feel comfortable to ask me.
So we have a question. So do you send your sons with safe snacks to lessen the burden for families of his friends? How do you feel about that? Does he eat with the family, or like if he's spending the night or having there over dinner time, how do you handle that?
Well, thankfully, well, I guess I should start with this. We don't do sleepovers. So thankfully that's not an extended stay that he's having to deal with. And most of the time play dates are like in the neighborhood. And so if he's hungry, he just comes home. I try and always make sure, he's eaten before he goes off to play. So he hasn't asked to take any snacks. Most of the time they're so busy running around and doing sports, jumping on the tramp. Snacks is not a big issue for him. And then he knows, like, a lot of the moms know fruit snacks are safe. So if they want like a little treat, all the moms in the neighborhood have fruit snacks, because they know, oh, that's safe for Megan's son. So, but as far as like main snacks and meals, no, he hasn't. I feel like where he plays close enough, he'll come home back, oh, I want some more lunch or this or that. So again, he's pretty responsible, noticing his cues. If I was to stick some gluten-free pretzels in his backpack, I don't think he would care, but I also don't know if he ever wants to stop playing to even eat,
So that has not arisen yet for him. So can you share your perspective, and you've talked a little bit about it, more on your perspective on your responsibility to influence others. Allergy parents often discuss how to discern their sphere of control related to other people's behavior. What should I do? What shouldn't I do? And I know you're all about empowering yourself and your kids, and not necessarily trying to control everything everybody else does.
Yeah. As I, as an adult, have done therapy and tried to learn and grow myself in personal development, I have realized I cannot control everything, and it stinks, because I think I'm pretty good at planning and I want to be able to control everything. But honestly, that's exhausting. And that's when I start to feel the most burnout. And I have to realize people have their own autonomy. I cannot control another human being, especially another adult, so all I can do is I look, okay, what are my responsibilities? What can I do? I can be very open. I can make sure they understand my son has food allergies, and that they know where his emergency medications are, and that they know the seriousness of what would happen, that he need his EpiPen, need to go to the ER. And then I'm always happy to tell them, hey, here's some safe snacks. If, like, we've had birthday parties where, the parents like, oh, I know Kurt has food allergies. What are some safe snacks? Oh, let me give you a huge list. Let me make it easy for you. So I try and do everything I can to ensure that it's as easy for them as possible, but they still have their own, agency to show up how they want to. And that can be, that's their choice, and it can be painful, and it can be like, darn, but then it's also showing you, well, maybe they're not going to be close, safe friends that we feel safe playing with a lot. They're going to choose to show up that way. And then I still have a choice. I still have that responsibility to say, okay, that boundary wasn't met, or, oh, they don't seem like that matters to them. And you can make choices afterwards. You're always learning from each other, right? You're monitoring how they show up. They're monitoring how you're putting boundaries in place. And so you just can't control other people. And as much as we'd like to say, no, every parent on the soccer team must only bring this, or I'm going to bring the treats every time, just to ensure, like, you got to let other people live their lives. And unfortunately, food allergies aren't top of mind for people who don't have to deal with it day in and day out. We would love to think that they take it into consideration, but they're busy people. I think you have to give people grace. People are going to make mistakes. I try and make it easy for them to not, but at the end of the day, disappointments are going to happen in life, and you just try and move on and think, was there something else I could have done to help remind them or communicate? If there wasn't, then I have to let it go. I did my part.
Can you talk more about the safe snack list? Like what's included on that, and how do you share that with both parents and coaches?
Oh, that list is shared everywhere. Grandparents, neighbors, school teachers, church teachers, scout leaders, coaches. I mean, it's in my notes, copy paste, because trying to come up with it every time, I inevitably forget something. And so it's just nice. So even on my blog, I have like this allergy-friendly candy list, that anyone can copy
Wonderful.
and paste and give out, because it is so handy. I have a snack list because, again, I just want to put the odds in our favor that someone can find something, they can give something safe, so that way they realize, because I think a lot of times people hear food allergies, and for us, we feel safe with like Lay's potato chips. It's our food, and people will be like, oh, I assumed I had to get something from Whole Foods, and it had to be this like brand I had never heard of. So I think it really opens a dialogue and helps people be more willing to participate, and they're like, I can give your son for snacks. He can have Lay's. Oh, we've already got that in our pantry. Sure. If he ever needs a snack, great. And so I think giving them that list helps spark ideas, and it helps people realize, oh, she's not asking me to spend $40 on a specialty item. I can get some regular stuff.
I bet that list really sort of demystifies.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily what they think, and it is accessible. You can do this. You're not. It doesn't necessarily. It really doesn't take like a Herculean effort, but it takes just the knowledge of, oh, this brand. Well, you can find that right at your grocery store. It's just so you try to make it easy for people.
Yeah, and it's that education. What's in my sphere of influence, I can educate. I can send ideas. I can open up that communication channel. So they have my phone number, and they can text me, hey, we're thinking about having snacks at this event. Does this work? Yeah, that works. Or no, that doesn't, but here's something similar,
So how about, I know you had some interesting, and I thought terrific ideas and perspective on how you're teaching your children to feed themselves safely. So you've talked about helping them build the skills, again, by practicing at home. What does that look like?
Yeah, so right now my son is getting a little bit older, and we're trying to teach him how to make some safe things at home. Because again, I mean, I might want to, because I'm really attached to my kids, follow them to college. I don't think they're going to want me to. So I have to prepare him, because he's not going to have, unfortunately, the easy eating top ramen, eating pizza in college. He's going to have to cook for himself. He's going to have to put in effort. And so, you start with age appropriate things like he'll make Daya mac and cheese. I taught him how to boil water. I taught him how to strain the noodles. He's got these safe noodle packets that he eats. He's learning how to read box directions and put in his gluten-free nuggets in the toaster oven. And he gets pushback. Why can't you just make it, because you need to learn. And my husband and I have always said, because Sundays are a little bit lazier day, we've got more time, we're not working, that once he turns 12, we're going to start having him plan and cook the Sunday dinner with me. So by the time he's 18, it's going to be like, he's going to feel accomplished. He's going to feel confident. He's going to be like, oh, I can, because it's not just the cooking, right? You have to be able to learn to look in the pantry. Oh, I can't make this because I haven't planned ahead. I need this ingredient. shop
Yes.
for it, how do I prep these ingredients, start to finish, because I want him to be successful. I don't want him to feel held back. I want him to be like, I'm hungry. I know how to make that. Not like, oh, I'm just eating the same sandwich day in, day out because I never learned. I
Right.
want him to have all the skills he needs.
So you're teaching him to read labels, to think ahead. Does he go grocery shopping then with you or your husband? Or is that something you could foresee in the future where it's also like, well, so I see on your list, you go ahead and go pick the safe snacks that you want to have, and then bring them back and we can talk about, like, so why did you choose this? Why did you think this was safe? Tell me about your decisions. So some parents talk about kind of doing that practice at the store. What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, it's genius. Right now, he is usually my babysitter when I go, so I can go quickly, but definitely once he starts planning the meals, I think you increment step it for sure. It's learning to, I mean, because there's so much involved in grocery shopping, not even food allergies. What's a good price?
Yes.
How much do you buy so you don't have a bunch spoil? Learning to use a debit card, learning to, what are the store hours, how to talk to the clerk. Like, there's so many life skills that takes, and I feel like sometimes people see it as like a woman's chore, or like, hopefully my wife will learn how to cook, or my daughter-in-law. No, you're a human being. You've got to learn how to take care of yourself. And so I think seeing where your child's at and just baby stepping up to where once he leaves, he's got all the required skills that it takes.
And as he has that confidence, he can have a broad and interesting diet. He can enjoy his relationship to food because it doesn't necessarily just feel like, I don't enjoy food. It's so limited. I only eat these 5 things. Instead, it does sound also, everything on your site and in your blog, you're talking about, you want to enjoy food and your relationship to food. Yes. So here are ways to do it. It might be different than how somebody else, but it can be just as enjoyable.
Yeah.
And you don't have to miss out.
Things, even like, oh, okay, you're hungry. You might want to go for something more like with protein or carbs that's going to fill you up. Just teaching them all the nuances that there is to food. And, the cookbook that I made, I literally made sure, like, my family tested all the recipes. And I thought, well, if no one buys this, I can at least hand it to my son and say, here are recipes you enjoy. So when you have that craving, because it's nice to feel satisfied. It's nice to feel like, I have a craving, I can fulfill it. And so for him to, and he's, in fact, one time he said, I'm going to run away, because he was mad at me. And he said, I'll take your cookbook and I'll give it to grandma and she can take care of me. And I thought, yes, well, I will agree with part of that statement. You could take my cookbook and you would be fine, so make what you wish existed.
I'm leaving, but I'm taking the good stuff. That's awesome. So can you talk more about how people can work with you and benefit from all the fabulous resources you've curated on your site, and how to access your cookbooks?
Awesome. Well, thank you. Yes, I try and make all my recipes top 8 free. Sometimes we will use soy because that is one my son can have, but I try and make it, really accessible to all sorts of different types of diets. And if you want just the free recipes, I have like 300 posts on my site. There's a search bar in the menu, or I've got a recipe index and it separates it to like 30-minute dinners or baking or breakfast. And so, go crazy, go look through that, find things that work for you. You can find my cookbook. It's an Allergy Mom's Life-Saving Instant Pot Cookbook. It's on Amazon. You can just search for it through my name because that title is kind of long. And then also on my website, I have 3 different e-cookbooks because I know some people prefer digital. I've got a 2-week ebook that has both the dinners and the shopping list for a top 8 elimination, because a lot of people with EOE have to do that. And then I also have a summer 30-day like meal plan. So that way it's all your dinners, it's all your shopping lists, because in the summer you tend to want like grilling and salads and pasta salads and lighter stuff. That's not going to heat up your kitchen. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, I better have a winter one, because at least me, I like to eat seasonally. So you've got the soups and the pastas and the skillet dinners and all those like warm, comforting dishes. So like I said, basically anything I'm like, that would be nice to have. I'm like, I should make that and share that. So I try and just give a lot of resources. And then on like my social media, I don't do a lot of like informational posts, but I try and share our life. I have tons of highlight bubbles saved where I walk you through what a scope looks like for EOE, literally the process. If you never had that, we've done tons of oral food challenges. I document it all. What does an oral food challenge look like? I try and really showcase so that way if you're new, you can kind of see someone living through that process.
Oh, that's fantastic, because those are when people have to do something new and they already feel stressed about the adjustment to this new. And so they can find all of that too, sort of your lived experience, and that can give them a sense of, and I think too, it normalizes other families are going through this, or other families are finding their way. And so what might an oral food challenge look like, and how did your family prepare yourself for that experience?
Yeah.
So we're getting comments from the audience members about they're loving your idea of really looking at what your sphere of influence is and coming from that place to have an impact. So what else haven't we covered that you think, what sort of, if you can summarize your message to the audience, what would you want them to know? Let's say first, newly diagnosed people who might be coming across us.
Yeah. Newly diagnosed. Well, I feel like there's a couple of messages. No, you're not alone. There's so many millions of people, but we're all spread out. And so it's easy to think, gosh, my friends and family don't get this. I'm the only one in my play group or my church group. You're not alone. Second, go ahead and grieve. Like, it's okay. Like, I remember my mom gave me all these recipes, to take with me to college and use when I got married. And I had to like throw out almost all of them. And I thought, those are memories. Those are foods that, I used to enjoy, and it's okay to grieve it. Sometimes you want to chide yourself and like, oh, it's just food. No, it's part of culture. It's memories tied up. It's okay to feel bad, but pick yourself up. Let yourself have that moment. But like, our family motto is like, we can do hard things. And I think attitude just ends up influencing so much. And I'm not saying like the toxic positivity, it's always roses. No, we've had anaphylaxis. My son feels left out frequently, even though I felt like I bend over backwards to help people. But at the end of the day, life is still good. There's so much beauty in life. I think one thing that really helped me when my son was diagnosed with EOE, we were having to do a lot of endoscopies at primary children's, and I was seeing children with horrible conditions. And I thought, okay, this really blows that my son can't eat this, but I'll take food allergies. There's much worse in the world. And like I've said, as I've seen this journey, we've met amazing people, other food allergy moms. We've, learned, we've grown, our confidence, advocating for ourselves, learning to be okay being different. It's not always going to be all negative, and it will start to feel normal. You'll find a groove, you'll find a new normal.
And it sounds like, your family's approach has been, you can figure out a way to do whatever it is you want to. So your kids are involved in sports because they're excited about that. So you figured out ways, okay, what do we have to do to make that work? And so that communication, verbally, non-verbally, and then using those tools and strategies that people can find if they go to your site, they can see what are some ways I can have routine ways of communicating that might make me feel more, make it more just natural and matter of fact, rather than it's this really big task that seems too monumental. So then people tend to just think, well, we better not do that thing. But it sounds like very much like you need to do the things that you're going to be excited about. So you can do sports, you can travel, and you can eat out. If you find the ways in which you can just communicate openly, share information, educate, but also keep building your own resiliency to bounce back when it doesn't go as you hoped.
Definitely.
So we can't thank you enough for making the time and being here with us. And you're just so professional while they're managing your daughter, just like doing all the things.
Ryan.
Just very, very glad to have you here in your time. So we are out of time. On behalf of the Wiser Center, we thank you so much for being with us today. We recognize the strength and perseverance of all of our food allergy community, and we'll continue to bring you strategies to navigate the journey. Please check out Megan's site and share it with others who might benefit. Now, stay with me for a 2-minute mindfulness practice. So if we can take a moment and just settle back into yourself, perhaps taking a deep breath. Remembering we can bring mindfulness to our everyday moments where we might feel stressed. We have to do hard things, or perhaps, we're worried about something. Remember, we can come back, find where you can feel yourself breathe. Is it the rise and fall of your chest or your stomach? Pay really close attention. What does it feel like to be breathing right now? Maybe closing your eyes. Now, as you breathe in, imagine your breath is a cloud in the sky. So breathing in, filling your cloud with air. Breathing out, picturing your cloud float along in the sky. Continue to breathe in, filling your cloud with its big, puffy edges, and its, however your cloud looks, how big or small, filling it up as you breathe out, picturing your cloud float along in a beautiful blue sky. Coming back to feel yourself breathe, just being in this moment. If your mind is wandering away, gently come back and picture the next cloud floating by in the sky. Breathing in, filling your cloud with air, and breathing out, sending it on its way. Remember, you can come back to your breath in any moment that feels difficult, or you've had a stressful moment, or maybe you're worried or feeling anxious about doing something new, or about advocating for yourself or communicating. Take a moment and find your breath and remember what you heard here today. You can do hard things, and keep practicing what it is that you want to be able to do. Thank you for being with us today. And on behalf of the Wiser Center, we thank you for your time.